It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast with Ryan and Jacob. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for checking us out. This week, we're going to be tackling Daredevil Season 1, Episode 3, Rabbit in a Snowstorm. And we're also going to be delving into some Moon Knight discussion. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into that, I got to introduce my main man, my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I am doing great. I can't wait to talk about some Marvel content and some fun movie stuff. It's always a blast being on your podcast. I enjoy being here every week, and I can't wait to see what this week's going to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because last week was such a loaded episode with the April preview and Daredevil Season 1, Episode 2, I think we put a lot of the life stuff on pause in that discussion. So I think we should go back to the bread and butter of this show. So what's new with you? Good things, bad things, middle of the road things?
It's been pretty good this week. I've been doing, my normal stuff, going to and from work, editing videos, making videos. I'm definitely in a much healthier place at the moment. I'm having great times with friends and family. I've been doing some really cool stuff on my channel. I did like a live stream review discussion with one of my other YouTube friends. I collabed with Jacob Collins, and we did like this big epic live stream discussion of Scream 3, which was a lot of fun. So that's just been some really cool stuff that's been going on in my life, whether personal or on my channel. I hope things are going good over on your end as well.
Yeah, things are going really well. I'm very grateful for a lot of different things. I'm currently in training for another run. This is the Easter Beach Run. It is I think it's either the 55th or the 56th annual run, because in the Daytona Beach area, it's a pretty big tradition. And it has a double meaning for me because that was the last run that I did when I was actually kind of skinny, and I gained a lot of weight due to the pandemic and stress eating and a bunch of other things. College, it was especially rough. But now that I'm in a much better place with my health, I am taking the run head on. I am going to be slaying the dragon. It's going to be Saturday, April 16th, and I'm going to be talking about it on my social media when it does come closer to it. It's been an interesting training session. It's been a lot of cardio, a lot of sprinting, a lot of just working on my endurance, because I've done similar runs before. The one at Daytona International Speedway that I did was a 5K. This is a little more than that. A 5K is just about 5 miles. The Easter Beach Run is almost just over 5 miles. So it's a bit longer than I'm used to. So endurance is the key. You can gas out pretty early in a run like that. So it's really important to not just blow all of your energy on like the first mile or so. It may not sound like super important, but when you're in the moment, it is really important. It's about endurance. It's about keeping a good pace. It's about not tuckering yourself out, which it's incredibly important. So it's been a learning thing for me, and I'm going into this run with a great intensity, because when I ran it last, I was not in as good a shape, and now I'm in the best shape of my life. And so I'm going to be taking this dragon out like I'm Prince Philip at the end of Sleeping Beauty.
All right. I can't wait to hear what your progress is going to be on this run. Definitely let us know on your podcast how well you did. I'm sure we're all looking forward to, what's going to become of that. It's always cool hearing stories like that, preparing to run and be part of these marathons. I know it's fulfilling for sure when you cross that finish line, knowing that you made it through all the way.
Yeah, I know great friend of the channel, Aaron White, is a big runner too. So he's probably going to be cheering me on from afar. So I'm hoping that he does see this. But in terms of movie related stuff in my channel, a lot of good things are going my way. The Banana Meter connection is still going very strong over on the Suit Up Geeks channel, because this is going to be dropping this coming Wednesday. So last night, being Tuesday night, I was a part of the Suit Up Geek Fix podcast's Best Movies of All Time draft. And it's basically where you pick a series of 6 movies as like your fantasy team, if you will, and it's under a theme. The last couple ones I've been a part of have been like sci-fi. I was in the sci-fi one. I was in the Oscars one. I was not in the rom-com one. I skipped that because I would have gotten slaughtered. But I was also in the Christmas one, and in the Christmas one, I got to the semifinals. So I'm looking in this upcoming one, or the one that has passed by the time this episode drops, to have gotten a lot farther than that, because I've won 3 of their movie trivia battles. I was put into a pool to where I got like the last chance spot, and my number was drawn. So I got entry into the draft, because whoever wins the draft becomes the champion, and they're going to have to defend the title at some point down the line. So I'm looking to get the W, and by the time this episode does air, because how this works is the Suit Up Geek Fix podcast will put up a Twitter poll, and it'll be like, hey, this is this person's team, this is this person's team. Vote for your favorite. And I would really like it if everyone would please vote for me. I should say up front that I'm going to be working with some great people. Rachel from Rachel's Reviews is in the draft. Deebs, who runs the whole thing, is going to be in it. Let's see, LC Screen, or the former LC Screen Talk, Chili Boy Productions, my bad. He's going to be in it. So it's a pretty big field. And so it's going to be interesting to see how I do, but I want to win. So I guess as a bit of an extended plug, stay tuned to my Twitter at RyanCam20. I will be retweeting it and saying, hey, come and vote for me, because I actually do have a bit of an advantage. I have a bit of a second round bye, or first round bye, so I'm already in the second round. I'll be facing off against Chili Boy Productions. So when that does come up, you all will definitely know it. And so vote for me. That's all I got to say.
Yes, vote for Ryan, everybody.
I should make like buttons or something to be like, like, vote for Ryan, vote for Ryan, vote for Ryan. Shout out to Nicole.
The campaign I can get behind.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But by the time the episode drops, I believe the first Twitter polls will be going up. So stay tuned for that. I'll be retweeting it. So be on the lookout for all of that. But that's all for life stuff. Let's dive into some movie talk, and let's talk about some stuff we've been watching right now. So, Jacob, what have you been watching right now?
Let me go through some of the videos that are coming on the channel. Like I said, I did a live stream discussion this past weekend with Jacob Collins. His channel is called 3D Movie Cinema, and we did a live stream discussion on Scream 3, which I had never seen before. The other Jacob has seen all the Scream movies. It's like one of his favorite horror franchises. So we had like this in-depth spoiler discussion on Scream 3. For the sake of this podcast, it'll be non-spoiler in case you hadn't seen it. And I thought it was fine. This was an interesting Scream movie. It was definitely one of the weaker Scream films. This did not have Kevin Williamson as writer. They had a different writer for Scream 3. And it's nowhere as sharp as the first 2 movies because of that. However, I do like the setup, as we're in Hollywood this time, and the movie is pretty much a movie within a movie, because we're on the set of Stab 3, and we got Sydney, Dewey, and Gail interacting with the actors playing themselves on the making of Stab 3, with Ghostface doing all these various killings. There's some fun stuff in there. There's a couple cameos that caught me off guard. I'm not spoiling them here, but there's this one cameo that I was on the floor dying of laughter because I was so surprised that this person showed up in this movie. There's some really good commentary in there about like Hollywood stuff. there were some interesting jabs at Harvey Weinstein, and Weinstein was one of the producers. So the fact that Wes Craven snuck a joke in there before that scandal broke out against him was really bold of him to do that, but it made the movie stand out more. There's some interesting stuff here. I don't The movie came out like a year, unfortunately, after the Columbine massacre. So horror movies were put in a blame box during like the early 2000s. Like, oh, violence was the cause of this tragedy. So some of the horror elements felt dumbed down because of that. Because the MPA is like, hey, Wes, you got to tone down some of the violence in this movie. We're getting some complaints. And so the horror sequences are not as memorable in this movie compared to the first. And also, I was not a fan of the final twist. I can't go into it because of spoilers, but the twist didn't really make any sense. It turns out they had other plans and they changed that in post production, and that didn't really work. But the movie itself is enjoyable for what it is. I mean, I enjoy the Scream franchise for what it is. I don't like this as much as the first two Scream movies, but I liked it a little bit above the new Scream, which I had mixed feelings on. So I guess this is a more mixed to positive Scream movie, and any Wes Craven movie is still good at the end of the day.
Dang, it sounds like Wes Craven was a bit of a canary in the coal mine when it comes to the whole Weinstein thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was interesting. Like the reference, somebody made a reference that people in Hollywood are criminals and they get away with everything was the reference they were going with, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that was a joke in this movie.
yeah,
And
it's definitely near the knuckle there. definitely, definitely. Wes Craven at a certain point was like, you know what? I'm just doing it. I don't care. Because,
yeah,
here's a bit of a fun fact. I don't know if Jacob, you knew this or if anyone else knew this, but I always found this fascinating. And I think I may have said this before, but Wes Craven never wanted to do horror movies. He always wanted to do romance movies or romantic comedies. I believe it was in Scream 2 or 3 where the director of Stab 3 or one of the Stab movies basically was like, I'm just doing this as to get my foot in the door. I really want to do romances. And so that's why in Wes Craven's career he directed a movie like Music of the Heart with Meryl Streep. Like he was always known for like Nightmare on Elm Street and People Under the Stairs and all these horror movies. But deep down inside, he wanted to do romances. He snuck a few in there, but he became the master of horror, and that became his brand for a really long time. He was good at it, but it was like learning another language to him. It's nice to know that he had the skill, but it wasn't the thing that he wanted to do. I always found that just to be fascinating.
yeah. It makes me intrigued to check out some of his other outside horror movies. I know he even directed like a comic book movie at one point too. He did Swamp Thing in 1982, which I've never seen, but that one has an interesting little cult following.
Yeah, it was kind of panned by critics, but over time it has gotten a very good reputation. So it's one of those that has gotten better with time, so I'm told. I'm looking to do it for Scary Mania one year, so that'll be interesting when I do finally check it out. Anyway, what else you got?
Some other stuff that I've checked out. My recent Celebrating Disney series, I covered The Great Muppet Caper from 1981. This is the second Muppet film following the Muppet movie. This one involves the Muppets going off on this kind of little caper mystery as there's this jewel thief going around stealing these jewels from a wealthy woman named Lady Holiday, played by the late Diana Rigg. It turns out the jewel thief is actually her dim-witted brother, played by another actor who recently passed away, Charles Grodin, who is absolutely hilarious in this role. And to get himself off the scent, he is putting the blame on Miss Piggy, and Miss Piggy gets arrested, and Kermit and Fozzie have to investigate the truth and stop the real jewel thief before he strikes again. This is not. It's one of the lesser Muppet movies, in my opinion. I don't think this one has near as much of a punch compared to some of my favorite Muppet movies, like the Muppet movie or the Muppets film from 2011. I prefer Muppet movies that have, the high comedy and the extravagant musical numbers, but they have a lot of heart to them. The first Muppet movie was about the Muppets meeting and journeying to Hollywood to get their big break, and the Muppets 2011 film was like their big reunion and comeback movie. This is just a fun comedy caper, and it's fun for what it is. A second tier Muppet movie is still a lot of fun. I do enjoy the cameos in this movie. John Cleese is hilarious in this movie. I love his cameo to pieces. The songs in this are a lot of fun. I enjoyed the caper aspect. I enjoyed the cast throughout. Charles Grodin, like I said, is hilarious. And I forgot Diana Rigg was Lady Holiday. Like, I know her best as like Tracy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. To see her in a more lighthearted comedic film, I thought she nailed that role. I think this is a fun Muppet movie for what it is. I can see. What was I saying? Hold on. It's an enjoyable Muppet movie. Not one of my favorites, but still highly enjoyable.
I mean, it's the Muppets, so of course it's going to be awesome no matter what. Am I right?
Oh yeah, there are some good sequences in this movie. I mean, even Jim Henson one-upped some visuals in this movie compared to in the first. Like the first movie, it was impressive seeing them pull off the effect of Kermit the Frog riding a bike. Here he has all the Muppets ride bikes, and it was even more awesome to see. And this came out like 2 years after the Muppet movie. And to see him continue to one-up his craft was really amazing to see. And it still holds up all these years later.
Yeah, one of my favorite Muppet jokes is from the 2011 movie. It's when I can't remember the exact context, but there was an explosion, and Fozzie Bear turned around and he's like, "That was a really loud explosion. Surprised we had it in the budget."
Yeah.
My terrible Fozzie impression, but there it is.
Oh, that is. Yeah, I love that. That's one of the funniest jokes in the whole movie. That and the whole them having to kidnap Jack Black so that they can have a guest on their comeback show was hilarious.
Yeah, and shout out to Chris Cooper, who was just awesome in there. Maniacal laugh, maniacal laugh. He understood the assignment.
Yes, and I love his villain rap song. I got more cash flow than Robert has De Niro's.
Oh man. Chris Cooper is underrated. That is for certain.
I love that. That's like my second favorite Muppet movie, behind the original. But it's so good. It was a great comeback movie for the Muppets. All right, another movie I checked out was 1-2-3, which was a Billy Wilder movie. It was a satirical comedy that he made in 1961. And this one was very fascinating because it dives into Cold War tensions between the U.S. and Russia, and it's set in Berlin, Germany. The film was made in 1961, which was the year the Berlin Wall was built, but the movie was made before that. So the movie pretty much came out in really bad timing because people didn't really want to see that side of politics at the time, but it's become a cult classic since. The movie itself is pretty fascinating. It's got James Cagney, who stars as like the head of a Coca-Cola plant in West Germany, where the U.S. is stationed at. He has to take care of the teenage daughter of his boss, who's coming to visit, but she, bombshell, ends up marrying a Russian communist from East Germany. And so you got the daughter of the boss marrying somebody that she's not supposed to hang out with. And you have like this culture conflict between him, the teenage daughter that he's supposed to take care of, and his boss, mixed with the communist character. And so there's a lot of tension going on. It's a fast-moving comedy. Characters talk super fast in this movie because it's harkening back to the screwball comedies where people, talk really fast. There's a joke per minute. It moves so fast that you have to watch it like 2 or 3 times to pick up on what the characters are saying. It flies by so fast it can get a little exhausting at times, but I really loved it. James Cagney was hilarious in the lead role. I enjoyed even like the satirical comedy aspect, like Doctor Strangelove, which came out around the same time, Stanley Kubrick's film. I think that one doesn't work for me. I found the satire in that a little too dry. But this movie from Billy Wilder did a good job and like poking fun of both sides of the spectrum, addressing the flaws of both systems while still having a good message on peace in the end, which I really respect. The movie is all around the blast, and I would say this is one of Billy Wilder's hidden gems.
Yeah, James Cagney was great. One of the movies I'm going to be talking about when it's my turn, he actually gets referenced there, and I was like, I haven't thought of James Cagney in quite some time, but he was a big deal when he was in his prime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know he did a lot of gangster movies back in like the 30s and 40s. I know he like Angels and Dirty Faces, I think, was one of them. And I haven't seen too many of his gangster movies. The movie I'm the most familiar with him in, he was in the 1940s musical Yankee Doodle Dandy, and that movie is fantastic. That's like one of the best musicals that came out in that time. It's a really good biopic. The songs are fantastic, and his performance is legendary. It's a really good movie, and it's cool seeing the more comical side of James Cagney in this Billy Wilder film that I recently saw him in.
Yeah, Billy Wilder probably has to be in the conversation for one of the most versatile directors of all time. He could go from something like Double Indemnity or Sunset Boulevard to something screwball like what you were talking about, 1, 2, 3, or Some Like It Hot, or something like that. Like, he was just a master of just going from serious dramas to screwball comedies and sometimes straddling the line between the two. I don't think we'll ever see his like ever again.
Yeah, he did some really interesting stuff. Like even Stalag 17, which is a criminally underrated film. That's a war movie, but it is drenched in so much comedy. Like the movie is a laugh riot, but it's also a suspenseful movie where characters are trying to escape from this prisoner of war camp during World War II. It is actually a very intense movie. And it really shows, how well Billy Wilder can balance different genres and make an entertaining movie.
Yeah, like I said, shout out, like, that he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yep, and I definitely appreciate him. The more I watch, the more I dive into his complete filmography. All right, another movie that I checked out, going back into some early Alfred Hitchcock. We're going to talk about Rich and Strange from
Oh.
1931,
let's
and this
fasten,
one,
let's fasten our seatbelts.
Rich and Strange. This one is an attempt from Alfred Hitchcock in making a comedy as well. This one involves a guy who's fed up with his day job. So he and his wife decide to take all their life savings and go on a cruise. And the plan and their cruise pretty much takes a pretty drastic turn for the worse as our two characters end up in some bad luck on their adventures. The movie starts out really strong. I actually thought it was funny seeing Hitchcock trying to do a Charlie Chaplin-esque comedy. Like the first 5 minutes feels like you're watching a Charlie Chaplin movie, almost like a silent movie, because you have the slapstick gags and you got things going wrong for our main character as he's struggling to open his umbrella and he's getting wet outside. It's an extended sequence that I thought was actually very hilarious. I'm like, okay, I think we're going to see a fun, different side of Alfred Hitchcock in this movie, and I think it's going to be an enjoyable film. And then they get on the boat, and it turns into a melodrama. And I'm like, no, I'm sick of Hitchcock melodramas because you got the wife who falls for an English suitor, and they have an affair, and then the other guy meets a princess, and they have an affair, and it turns out she's a con artist, and so she steals his money, and they end up broke on the boat, he and the wife. And then it turns into like this Titanic like disaster movie in the third act. I'm like, what are you doing? What's with this movie? and, so, and then the boat's sinking and the characters are stuck in a room and they're thinking, oh, we're gonna die. And I'm like, I don't care. You're so unlikable anyway. This movie's not working. And then that turns out to be a joke. I don't think it matters if I go into spoilers in this one. It's an very old movie. So it turns out that was all a joke. The boat started to sink, but it stopped, and they were able to get out through the window. And then they get picked up by this other boat. And then there was a cat that was on board. And guess what the crew on the boat, the group of pirates, end up eating? They end up eating the cat. You see the cat plastered on the side of the boat, stuffed. I'm like, no, that's not a funny joke. That is just too wrong on so many levels. I did not enjoy this one. I liked it better than some of the other early Hitchcock films that I've covered. Like, it's definitely better than the last movie, The Skin Game. But Hitchcock, you're still not there yet. Let's just put it that way.
Let me just say, let's just say, this is drugs. This is Alfred Hitchcock. This is Alfred Hitchcock on drugs.
Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah. That's what it felt like. That's a good description of Rich and Strange.
Well, yeah. I just looked up Hitchcock's Wikipedia, and according to his Wikipedia, you have 3 more movies left, and then when you hit The Man Who Knew Too Much, things should get better.
Yeah, I've already there's number 17 is next, and then Waltzes from Vienna is after that, and then Man Who Knew Too Much. I've already looked at that. Looking forward to the good ones. Let's put it that way. All right, and then another director project that I am starting is, as this director passed away recently, I decided to start diving into Ivan Reitman's filmography, the guy behind such films as Ghostbusters, Kindergarten Cop, Stripes, Twins, and so many others, because there's quite a few of his I've never seen before. Obviously, I've seen the Ghostbusters movies and I've seen Kindergarten Cop, but quite a few of his movies I've not even seen, so it'll be exciting to check his movies out for the first time. Well, his first movie was definitely a bit of a bust, unfortunately. His first movie was in 1973, and he directed a movie. Get ready for this, folks. His first movie is called Cannibal Girls.
Run that, yes. Run that by me again.
His first movie, he directed a 1973 B movie called Cannibal Girls.
Is it exactly how it sounds?
The premise involves a group of girls who run an operation. You're meant to believe it's this fancy restaurant in this small town, and it's these girls, actually, they invite these strangers in, and you're meant to believe it's all good, and then they start eating people. That's the premise of the movie. I didn't think it was fun. I mean, I think when I started watching a movie, it was promoted as a comedy. So I'm like, okay, if you make a comedy out of this, it might work. But to me, the film was played straight throughout, and so I was bored throughout the whole thing. And even the horror aspects where they dive into the cannibal aspects, like some of the kills in the sequences and the edits was done so bad that honestly you can watch it as a so bad it's good movie almost. But I didn't really enjoy the film. The acting was poor. Funny thing was, Eugene Levy is like the main lead actor in this movie, and thankfully he went on to have a better career after this, because if you just see him in this movie, it's not really doing him any favors. And thankfully Ivan Reitman went on and did better things after this. As a first movie, you can tell it's somebody's first movie because you don't feel any of the things that made Ivan Reitman such a good director in this. It's just a really bad, schlocky B-grade movie with not really that much to it, bad acting, The kills were terribly put together, and I was struggling to stay awake throughout this movie, honestly. Even with a premise as wild as Cannibal Girls, it didn't do enough to hold my attention. But thankfully, Ivan Reitman's done a lot better.
Yeah, it's funny you're doing an Ivan Reitman project. I was going to say one of the films that he would direct in his later life is a movie called Draft Day, which starred Kevin Costner and Jennifer Garner. I think it's criminally underrated, and so I'm looking forward to when you eventually get to that movie because
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
it is very, very good. It is better than a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, I've actually heard pretty good things about that one.
Yeah, not to mention Reitman did Ghostbusters, obviously. He was like he did like nothing but banger comedies throughout the 80s and 90s, pretty much.
Yeah, there's some of that I've not even seen before. Like he did Stripes, which he did before Ghostbusters, which I heard nothing but great things about. I've never seen it. And then he directed Twins, which I've never seen before either. People are saying that's one of his funniest movies. I'm like, sorry, I haven't seen it, but now I have incentive to check it out, and I'm excited to check some of these Ivan Reitman comedies out because before starting the project, the only ones I've actually seen are the two Ghostbusters movies he directed, Kindergarten Cop, and then Junior, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as a pregnant man. Don't get me started on that. That one is not that good, but the other movies are pretty good.
Yeah, Junior is something else. That's all I will say. And I've
All
actually
right, Ryan, what have you been watching?
well, one more note, really quick. I have actually seen Stripes, and I didn't love it, but I thought there was a lot to like about it. Bill Murray is great, and shout out to the late John Candy, who played Dewey Oxberger, who is one of the best lines in the entire movie. Lighten up, Francis. You'll know it when you hear it. But I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. So, what I've been watching lately is mostly like newer stuff. I wound up watching The Lost City, which is now in theaters. It starred
Oh,
Sandra
nice.
Bullock and Channing Tatum. This movie is not like you know exactly what this movie is going to be just from the premise alone. It's about a writer who writes these like adventure romance type novels, but she wants to kill off the series, even though it is doing very well. A very big fan of the series is also very rich, played by Daniel Radcliffe. Kind of sort of kidnaps her and says, "Hey, this thing in your latest book, this treasure, it's actually real, and I need you to help me find it." And so her cover model, played by Channing Tatum, goes to try and find her. Like I said, this is not like an original masterpiece. You know exactly what's going to happen, but I had a lot of fun with this. I mean, a lot more than I thought I was going to. Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum have really good chemistry with each other. There's a great scene between the two where I thought it was going to be like, oh no, please just skip past this. It's the scene with the leeches. If you know, you know. But
Yeah.
it's actually quite it's actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I laughed a little harder than I thought I would at that. But it's the thing with the leeches. I can't say anymore because this is a family show. Uh,
Yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe is having a lot of fun here. It's nice to see him in something a little more mainstream. He's been doing some weird movies lately. Like he was this movie called Guns Akimbo, which I have not seen, but it just seems a bit weird to me. I mean, the man was Harry Potter, so I mean, he could pretty much just lay low the rest of his life and not worry financially, but so it's up to him what he does, but it's nice to see him in something related to this. Brad Pitt's also in here. His role is very brief, but it is very memorable. That's all I will say. And it's not reinventing anything, but like I said, I had a really good time with it. It's a good crowd movie too. I remember when I was watching it, it was in a really big theater and there were a lot of people there and it was mostly couples and they were having a good time like I was. So it's a good couple movie. That's all I will say.
Yeah, I actually did see this movie this past week, and I forgot to mention it. That's why I was laughing during the leech scene you were talking about, because that scene was something else. But it was a decent enough movie. Like, it's like you said, Ryan. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything. It's pretty much a 21st century remake of Romancing the Stone. There's a few aspects that differentiate itself from Romancing a Stone. Romancing a Stone, Michael Douglas is definitely more the adventure type. Channing Tatum is just a model who thinks he's something, and he's funny trying to be the person that he's supposed to be in the book she's writing. I do like the chemistry with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. The scene stealer for me was Daniel Radcliffe. Like, considering I grew up watching him as Harry Potter, I had a blast seeing him take on a more over the top villainous role. And I like that he didn't play the role serious. He knew the assignment. He played such an over the top, kooky character that you just have a ball laughing at while he's on screen. I love Daniel Radcliffe's performance in this movie. The adventure aspect, I'll admit, it went a little dry, especially in the third act, but the movie as a comedy, it is a lot of fun. I enjoyed the movie for what it is. I don't think it's as memorable as Romancing the Stone, but it's still an enjoyable movie that definitely works as a good date night movie if you're into that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And so next up, I ended up rewatching Dune, my favorite movie of 2021, and this was at my local planetarium. It was a fantastic experience. They ended up it was a sold out house. I mean, they could only fit like 50, 55 people, and even with standing room only. But even then, it was just great. They because it's in a planetarium, they made it like when they were in space, they made it a space background. When they were on Arrakis, they made it look more like a desert background, or like you're on like Mars or the Red Planet or somewhere. The ambiance definitely helped. And I ended up going to see this because, well, it's Dune, it's amazing, but I ended up going to see it because this was the first movie night that my planetarium has done in nearly 2.5 years. It was actually the last thing I was supposed to see before lockdown happened, and then lockdown happened, and they had to cancel and give me a refund for it. And the next movie they're going to be doing is actually the one I was going to see in the first place before it got canceled. It's Friday the 13th, Part 2. And it's going to be on Friday, May 13th. So I'm going to be seeing that. But Dune, I mean, do I really have to say anything? The movie cleaned up on the Technical Academy Awards, and I mean, it's it's amazing. I am so hyped and looking forward to part two. It's gonna be just outstanding.
Can you explain the planetarium and how that works? Because I'm not used to that environment. If you don't mind.
Sure. So basically, basically you walk in and it's kind of like a movie theater, but instead of like a flat screen, it's like the screen is like the roof. So, for example, at my planetarium, they do this show called The Sky Tonight, and it's basically one of the planetarium staff being like, "Hello, folks, welcome to the planetarium, and I'm going to show you the sky tonight." And it starts out as like a night sky, and throughout the show, they show you like different planets and star clusters, and it just it really it really makes you feel small, especially when they drop the fact on you that if you took a penny and like the eye of Abraham Lincoln, just in that eye alone, there are billions of planets, and and there are billions of galaxies, and in those galaxies there are billions of stars. It makes you feel like yay big, but it's weirdly satisfying at the same time. I can't explain it, but
Yeah. It sounds very fascinating. I've never been to one of those planetarium type events, though. I guess if I head your way down to Florida, I might want to make an event out of it. It sounds really awesome,
yeah,
especially when you saw Dune. That seems like an amazing experience to see on such an enormous screen like that. The way you described it, it reminded me of the time that I went to Disney World. I think they had that China exhibit, and they had where you stand in a room, and it's like this big 360-degree circular screen. Is it kind of similar to that?
Yeah, except in the case of my local planetarium, you're sitting down in like
Oh,
pews.
okay.
Yeah,
Because
it's very
because
similar.
the China exhibit in Epcot was one of the most visually beautiful things I ever saw in Disney World, especially during the World Showcase segment at Epcot. I was so blown away by some of the cinematography and the novelty of the 360-degree screen, because you got so much to look at. Like, oh, I don't want to miss this, but oh, there's some cool stuff over there.
Yeah, and in my local planetarium, they do this thing called Second Saturday Laser Concerts, and basically they have this laser, like not laser cannon, but like a laser like projector, and they time it to music, and the lasers create images on the screen, and they kind of do like the same 6 or 7 shows, but I always go because I love it so very, very much. I've actually got my tickets for the one that they're going to be doing this coming Saturday, which will be April 9th. And they're actually going to be doing a laser U2 show. U2 is one of my all-time favorite bands, so that's going to be just I'm going to be in heaven for about an hour. So if you all don't hear from me, that's where I am. And
Okay.
and as far as the movie schedules go, after Friday the 13th Part 2, I believe they're going to be doing Apollo 13, which I think I've actually seen in a different environment before, but seeing it in a planetarium is just going to be it's gonna hit different. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it being a space-centered movie, I'm sure it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, for real. And to round up my portion, I I sent out a tweet when I was watching this. I was like, there's this movie that I always think about. It lives rent free in my head. It's Logan Lucky. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh. I literally tweeted out, "Do I have movies to watch? Yes. Am I rewatching Logan Lucky? Yes. Don't judge me." Because I love the movie so much. It's so quotable. It's my favorite Steven Soderbergh movie, and I believe that he has made technically better movies, but this is one that I could quote to you from memory. This is just so much fun, and I can't really put my finger on why. It just maybe it's because of the NASCAR element, maybe it's because the dialogue is just so good, the performances are excellent. I mean, Daniel Craig is so versatile. He could go from James Bond, this very posh British gentleman, to Joe Bang, who eats deviled eggs with this faux salt looking gimmick and, and knows what to do with when you give him like detergent pens and gummy bears. It's just fantastic. And Channing Tatum is a lot of fun. Adam Driver is as well. I love their brotherhood. I love how this whole heist starts off when like Channing Tatum looks Adam Driver dead in the face and says, "Cauliflower." it's just it's just so it's so weird, but it just fits for what they're going for. Um, the movie's currently on the free service Canopy, which I highly recommend that everybody check out. If you have a library card, then more than likely you can have access to Canopy. It's a free like movie app that allows you to stream a lot of classic movies, a lot of foreign stuff, a lot of stuff that you hear about from Sundance or TIFF usually goes there. I can't sing enough praises about Canopy, but sometimes they'll upload some stuff you wouldn't expect to see on there, like Logan Lucky. I did not imagine that it would be on there, but I'm so glad that it's there. And so Logan Lucky is just so much fun. Even though I've seen it before, I just got to watch it at least once or twice a year.
Yeah, Logan Lucky is such a blast. I've seen the film several times, and I get a great laugh out of it. In fact, actually, my sister and I have this like running gag with one another because she's a fan of the movie as well. She also really loves Adam Driver, especially in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. That's Kylo Ren, and so we joke all the time. What would Adam Driver sound like if he talked like his character in Logan Lucky as Kylo Ren? and all the results are endless. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. Go down to the cauliflower plants.
Oh man, that's amazing. She she is strong in the force. She just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Throw that piece of junk out of the sky.
I can't. Dang it, now whenever I watch Kylo Ren, it's gonna be a little thing in the back of my head. Just like all he needs is like a missing hand, which like you almost had, and it'd be like, there it is, it's perfect. But I can't describe my love for this movie. It brings me a sense of comfort. I have a bit of a short story and then we'll go into Moon Knight. But I have a short story. When Hurricane Irma was about to hit Florida, like where I live in Port Orange, it was gonna be hit hard. And so basically everything was closed. And the day before, everything was like shut down. Everything was like sold out. It was kind of like what happened with COVID and like the heat of it. It was a dress rehearsal that I didn't even know was a dress rehearsal. I was super nervous and I was like, I can't, because all my college classes have been canceled for the rest of the week. All I had to do was just stew at home and just prepare for just the worst. And so I was just like, oh, geez, I don't know what to do. And so I'm like, I wonder if my local theater's still open. And so I checked on my Regal app, and sure enough, it was. And I looked, and Logan Lucky was still playing. I had already seen it twice. I saw it with my dad, and then I went to go see it again by myself, I believe. And so it was just like, why am I going to see it again? Because it just it just made me feel comfortable in that time of just worrying about, oh, will the power go out? Will the tree come through my house? It allowed me to turn all of that off and just focus on cauliflower and Seth MacFarlane doing an Australian accent and being the head of an energy drink company, and the Winter Soldier being a NASCAR driver and being super into his diet that he calls software, unknowingly preparing for his role in Fresh. It was just a movie that made me feel comfortable in a time of great distress. And the power actually never went out in my neighborhood. We were one of the lucky ones. But after I got back home that night, I remember I was watching Breaking Bad on my Apple TV, and I was on the Netflix app, and I was watching it until it went out, because the meteorologist had predicted the power is going to go out at about 12 o'clock, like 8 minutes after midnight. So I'm like, got the clock, I got my TV, I'm going to watch Breaking Bad as long as I can. And then 12:08, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the power's still going. And by 1 a.m., I was like, all right, it sounds really like a hurricane, but I think I can go to bed. And so I ended up going to bed, and we never lost power. So we were one of the lucky ones. So I'm sorry for the long story, but that's what Logan Lucky means to me. It gave me a sense of zen and peace for an hour 45.
And that story is going to stay with you for as long as you live. That is a great story. I enjoy hearing stories like that and how it connects with some of your favorite movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what have you all been watching lately? Movies, TV, etc. Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have been watching lately. But Jacob, let's dive into some TV coverage. First, let's talk briefly about Moon Knight episode 1, because by the time last week's episode aired, it had dropped, and we both have seen episode 1. I have a full review of episode 1 here on the channel, so I will allow you to go first. What did you think of Moon Knight episode 1?
I absolutely loved it. I don't know where the show's going, because what I love is that it leaves you just as confused as our main character. But I love what's been established. I love that Marvel is experimenting with this one. There's a lot of psychological horror that is thrown around this first episode, as our main character doesn't know where he is in a lot of places, and you know he has that disorder where he has multiple personalities. So he's the main character Steven at one part, and then he's another character named Mike, and then he's the superhero Moon Knight. I'm excited to see where that goes. There's a lot to unpack, and I have no idea what all he can do. And that's the exciting thing going forward, is to see what's the series is going to be all about. I am so excited. Oscar Isaac completely nailed the role. He had to combine different personalities, and he nailed all of them in this first episode. I love that, even with the experimentation, it still had all the classic MCU-isms. Like, it even had like this over-the-top car chase set to Wham's "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go," and I was digging it. I was like one of the funnest aspects about the whole episode. And you got Ethan Hawke as our bad guy. We don't have too much of his character. He's not fleshed out just yet, but I am so excited to see more of him because he left such an impact. I think of all the Disney Plus shows that have come so far, I've enjoyed a lot of the premiere episodes, but Moon Knight was on a whole different level. And if the rest of the season is as good as the first episode, it could hands down be the best Marvel show on Disney Plus, and I'm excited to see what happens from here.
Yeah, I was definitely intrigued to see what happens next. I I guess I guess I'm waiting to see what comes of this, because these kind of Disney Plus shows have made big promises before, and I personally think there haven't been much of a success rate, but that's just me. But it's a very intriguing first episode, and I'm looking forward to what they do in episode 2. And shout out to this cast, because Oscar Isaac is great, Ethan Hawke is great. They got F. Murray Abraham as Khonshu, the god with like the long nose. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but
Yeah.
the MCU got Salieri from Amadeus. Like, Kevin Feige is unstoppable. He just is.
Yeah, he is great at casting so many actors you wouldn't expect to see in anything Marvel. Because didn't, like, several years ago, Ethan Hawke criticized superhero movies and comic book movies, and yet here we are. He's playing the villain in Marvel's Moon Knight. So anything can happen at this rate. Maybe he can talk Martin Scorsese into directing a Marvel movie down the road.
I wouldn't go quite that far. I mean, Scorsese might be a bit of the impossible dream, but hey, weirder things have happened. So
Yeah.
who really knows? But I think we both really dug episode 1, and I'm looking forward to episode 2. And I guess it's a bit of a plug if you would like to stay tuned with Moon Knight coverage on this channel. I will be reviewing every episode. They'll be up on Banana Meter and also here on this channel, so stay tuned for that. Well, Jacob, let's dig into Daredevil Season 1, Episode 3, Rabbit in a Snowstorm. This follows Foggy and Matt. They've got their first official case, and this episode is really the first interaction and the first but the first appearance that we see of Wilson Fisk. And I was thinking about this for quite some time. This has got to be one of the best villain intros of all time, because the first 2 episodes, you don't see Wilson Fisk at all. But they build up such a mystique around him that people will literally, like, do harm to themselves before they say his name. Like saying his name is like the kiss of death almost. And so I got to give credit to this show for making Wilson Fisk feel like Thanos, but not a space alien, but as close to as human as Wilson Fisk could possibly be. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought this was a really good episode. I think of the 3 so far, this one's probably my least favorite of the 3. I think there was a little bit of pacing issues in this episode. There were some side plots in this episode that didn't invest me as much as the main storyline. The subplot with the newspaper journalist, I honestly didn't care about. Every time it cut back to him, I almost fell asleep because I didn't think he was that interesting. And I'm like, why are we following this guy again? And then you see the Karen character going up to him and say, "Oh, I got this story." You can tell, I'm like, okay, we got some connections there. Okay, I don't have to complain as much about that anymore. But the build up to that, I'm like, what are we doing? The rest of the episode's really good. When it's centered around Matt and the court case he's doing, that was interesting. I'm a sucker for courtroom stuff and just about anything. 12 Angry Men, Witness for the Prosecution, and so many others. And so seeing that in a Marvel environment was awesome. I love the speech Matt Murdock gives to the jury in the end. I thought was well done. Great acting on Charlie Cox's part. The finale shocked me. You have Daredevil confronting the person that Matt Murdock is defending, and he's interrogating the guy. He's like, "Who are you working for? What is this all about?" And he's like, "I'm so scared to say this guy's name. I'll be dead if I say his name." He's like, "Do it." And then he brings up Wilson Fisk. And, after he said that, it's no hope because he's like, well, I have no desire to live because Kingpin's going to kill me anyway. So he stabs his eye into that. He stabs his eye on that, and what's the word to describe that?
Let's just call it like a pole.
He stabs his eye on a pole, and I'm like, "Yep, it's TVMA for a reason." That was brutal stuff. I'm like, wow, I was not expecting it to end on a route like that. And then, Brian, you brought up, then we see Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin for the first time, played by Vince D'Onofrio. Very classy villain. Don't want to mess with him. Probably the godfather of the MCU, much like Carmine Falcone is the godfather of Batman. I'm excited to see more of him in Daredevil, see why he's the big bad guy you don't want to mess with. And I'm sure he's such a formidable foe to Daredevil going forward. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, one thing about Ben Urich that you brought up, you weren't necessarily a fan of that whole subplot. Stay with it because the show actually does give him some stuff to work with, and he honestly becomes a pretty good he becomes a pretty good side character. That is all that I will say. Watching it back, I do kind of understand, like, he can be like not distracting, but that whole thing could be a little like wayward from from the more compelling stuff, like the stuff that Matt and Foggy were doing, just as an example. But Ben Urich is going to become real important. That's all I will say right here. And basically, what I will say is that it's all connected. I don't want to spoil it for you. I just can't say how and where and when, but it's all going to fall into place, especially in the second to last and last episodes. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of Wilson Fisk here, and he's just Vincent D'Onofrio just knocked this out of the ballpark. That's all I'm going to say, because we only see him in like literally the last scene, like staring at this big old white painting, and you could count the number of lines he has in this episode on one hand and have fingers left over, but you can kind of understand him just from that interaction alone. Like, Vanessa walks up to him and he's like, "What do you see when you look at that?" And then he says, "I feel like I am alone." And it's like, this very rich man seemingly with like all these connections, and he still feels alone. It's very interesting, and as you watch the show, it's just, I can't wait for you to see it.
One thing I want to say, I just love seeing Vincent D'Onofrio pop up on Twitter, especially in connection with his Wilson Fisk Kingpin character, because clearly he loves playing this character. Whether on the Daredevil show, then he reprised his role again on Hawkeye, he just has a blast playing this character, and he is so determined to play the role as many times as he can. He's so grateful to that, and I just love the personality that he does have, even on social media, when talking about the character that people just love seeing on screen. And I'm excited to see what what's going to happen with this character next. And I just love seeing his energy, even on a place like Twitter, a place where, as hostile and toxic of an app that can be, I just love it when somebody can share what he loves and do it in a way that people can respond well.
Yeah, and D'Onofrio is kind of known for going a little over the top in certain performances. Gomer Pyle in Full Metal Jacket is a prime example. So if you think he's a little bit restrained, trust me, like that's facade drops on more than one occasion. That's all I'm going to say right here and now.
I've always loved his role in Men in Black, where he's like the redneck cockroach. He was so funny.
Give me sugar and water. He pulls his face back like,
yeah, I was about to say that.
Is that God, he's just great. He really is.
Yeah.
And like you said, the courtroom stuff was just very well done. I don't know if I should spoil it. I don't think I should, but there is a twist that happens in the courtroom, and it involves a juror. And just when you think that thing is taken care of, it's totally not. And it is handled so well. We don't deserve this show. Like I keep hearing rumors of Daredevil like getting rebooted, and I'm like, oh please God, no, please don't do that.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens on that. I think if I had heard if they did reboot it, it would be like a different variant of the character, but still played by Charlie Cox. Since we're diving into like the multiverse and stuff, but yeah, I definitely see your frustration with that because 3 episodes in, this is a great show, and I it's hard, seeing something you already love and then maybe seeing a slightly different version of it that might potentially not be as good.
Yeah, I mean, you did bring up the multiverse thing, and that's going to be the new Hollywood trend. I can already sense it. The multiverse. We're already seeing it with movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dog on that movie. I've heard nothing but great things, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But that's going to be the new flavor of ice cream. It's multiverses. CW and the Arrowverse did it. MCU is going to be doing it with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and that whole thing. Like the Flash. I mean, I should say they're going to do it, but that whole thing is an entire other issue that I'm sure we'll talk about at another time. But that's going to be the new thing, and you bring it up. I honestly wouldn't mind. I mean, you could see multiple different Daredevils. Like you could have like a Frank Miller type Daredevil, or you could have like a Brian Michael Bendis type of Daredevil. It'll be interesting to see what they do, and it'll be interesting to see because there might be other worlds in there. Like you could see, like we've heard Blade teased, played by Mahershala Ali. The MCU is in a real like Schrodinger's cat type of situation. Anything is possible. You just have to open the box and figure out for yourself. Like the we hear the disembodied voice of Professor X in the Doctor Strange trailer. So the possibilities are literally endless.
And it'll be very exciting to see what's going to happen because I feel like No Way Home was just the tip of the iceberg when we saw all the classic Spider-Man villains and then Toby and Andrew showing up. I've heard rumors of stuff that might happen in Multiverse of Madness. It's possible Charles Xavier is going to be in it because that very much sounded like Patrick Stewart in the trailer. I've heard there's been talk Deadpool might be in the movie. We'll see if that's a thing. It's all hearsay. I've heard people say Wolverine might show up. I have no idea, but it'll be interesting seeing what's going to happen going forward in some of these multiverse related stuff in the MCU. And plus, we're getting What If season 2 later on as well. I love the first season and seeing, different universes of the same characters in a different world. I'm excited to see more of that explored in future seasons as well.
Yeah, I heard a rumor, and this is a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt. But I heard a rumor that that because the prevailing theory was that they were trying to make an Iron Man movie with Tom Cruise as Tony Stark. So I
Mm.
heard a rumor that they might actually do like a scene with Tom Cruise as Tony Stark or as Iron Man in some capacity. Again, that may not happen. It is a rumor, so keep that in mind. The
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise was considered to play Iron Man back in 2008 before they cast Robert Downey Jr. So if they actually get Tom Cruise for that one scene, whatever the rumor is, that would be like the funniest in joke that I've ever seen in anything comic book. I'm like, there's the actor that was almost Iron Man. Now here he is in the multiverse. Man, that would be cool if that happened.
our minds would collectively melt, like they would just melt like ice cream in the hot sun. But
Yep.
but anyway, have you all seen Daredevil season 1 episode 3? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And that's it. That's another episode in the books. Thank you all so much as always for watching. Jacob, thank you so much for being a part. It's always a pleasure. Where could people find you?
People can find me on Notherbox, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels. My main channel, you can just click my main name, Jacob Martin. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, other fun stuff along the way. Got some recent videos that dropped on the channel. Like I've already said in the video, I did a celebrating Disney review of The Great Muppet Caper. I did a live stream discussion with Jacob Collins, whose channel is 3D Movie Cinema, where we talked about Scream 3 for a good 1 hour and 42 minutes and other fun stuff. That was a great discussion. I reviewed 1, 2, 3 from a Billy Wilder project. I've covered Rich and Strange for Alfred Hitchcock, Cannibal Girls from Ivan Reitman. I got another video coming this week. I'll be reviewing Fantastic Mr. Fox for my Wes Anderson director project. I'll be my next celebrating Disney review that'll drop later this week will be for the Winnie the Pooh film Springtime with Rue, just in time for Easter. We'll be taking a break on YouTube this weekend because I'll be out of town. I'll be going on a camping trip, but I'll have a brief hiatus on my channel, but I'll be back with other stuff coming on the channel in the next week with various director projects and vlogging the movies and other reviews and celebrating Disney. And my superhero Saturdays will come back on hiatus as well. I haven't done one of those in a couple weeks because I wanted to revisit the Fantastic Beasts films and have time to cover them before the new one comes out. There's just a lot of exciting stuff coming on my channel, and then you can also check out my second channel, Storytime with Jacob, where I do book reviews and read-alongs. I'm currently reading The Woman in the Window. At the time of this video, I've done 39 out of 99 chapters. A very good read so far. It's all familiar territory for me because I've already seen the movie, which came out with Amy Adams. I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie, but I hear the book's better. So I'm hoping the book sticks the landing. Definitely check out both my channels and check out some good content on both of them.
Yeah, both of his channels and his social media will be linked in the description. Do be sure to check him out. And as for this channel, if you did like this video and you want to see more like it, please do hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, whenever a new video drops on the channel, you will be the first to know about it. As for this week, on Monday, the latest Twilight Zone vlog dropped for the episode called A Most Unusual Camera. It's not a great episode, but the next Twilight Zone vlog, I'll be covering the episode called The Night of the Meek, which is often regarded as one of the better Twilight Zone episodes. It's a Christmas episode, and it stars the late, great Art Carney, so be on the lookout for that. That'll be dropping this coming Monday. And then I will be reviewing Sonic 2 and Ambulance at the very least. I'm trying to see if I can find a place where Everything Everywhere All at Once is. I'm thinking it's at the Luxury Theater, about 15-ish minutes from me. I definitely want to see it. That is my point. And then this coming Sunday, I will be I will be dropping a Better Than You Remember video about the forgotten classic from 1991, The Rocketeer, starring Bill Campbell, Alan Arkin, and Timothy Dalton in one of his finest performances. So be on the lookout for all of that. Thank you all so much, as always, for watching. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam. We will see you next week. Take care.